Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and today we're continuing the Fourth Kingdom of Yen Let's Talk Lore series with episode 2, titled Outsized Ambition. Now previously in our first episode, we introduced Gongsun Du's rise to power in the Liaodong commandery, as he would turn this fringe frontier commandery into an efficient state. In terms of diplomacy, through political marriage and war, Gongsun Du was able to vassalize weak foreign powers such as the kingdom of Fuyu and the Gogoli to his northeast. And in terms of military strength, Gongsun Du was at least capable of holding his own against the larger foreign powers such as the nomadic Xianbei and Wuhuan tribes to his northwest. And finally, in terms of economic development, Liaodong transformed into a safe haven in the north for the Han population, especially with the chaos engulfing the capital with Dongzhuo's takeover. Now, all of this did come at a blood price, as Gongsun Du became the definitive authoritative figure in Liaodong over the dead bodies of more than 100 local gentry clans, as anyone who had wronged him in the past or stood in the way of his future were eliminated ruthlessly. And in this chaotic period of the late Han, where administrator power went unchecked, might makes right, especially in these faraway frontier commanderies. And this is only magnified with Gongsun Du's vindictive and cruel nature, as we will see in the example with Li Min, who was a well-respected elder and a former administrator of the Henei commandery that had retired and now resides back in his hometown in Liaodong. At the time, Gongsun Du wanted to recruit Li Min as his advisor, but Li Min despised how Gongsun Du had executed so many local gentry clans, so out of fear, he ran and sailed away with his family to an unknown island nearby to live out the rest of his days. Now hearing this, Gongsun Du was outraged, but with no trace of which island Li Min had sailed to, Gongsun Du could not direct his anger at Li Min. So he went after Li Min's clan, as Gongsun Du would first dig up Li Min's father's grave, as the body was desecrated before being burned to ash. But that was not enough for Gongsun Du, as then he went after Li Min's more distant clansmen, as the Li clan would soon be exterminated within the Liaodong commandery, simply because Li Min had refused Gongsun Du's summon and fled. And with Gongsun Du getting his way inside the Liaodong commandery, ambition naturally grew, and as being administrator, no longer sated Gongsun Du's appetite for power and prestige, Gongsun Du started to redraw the maps, and without a central government to worry about, he would split his Liaodong commandery into two new commanderies, which he will name Liaoxi and Zhongliao. And now with two commanderies under his control, he would also create a new province named the Ping province, and naturally he would make himself the governor, as he would also crown himself the title of the Marquis of Liaodong. But aside from redrawing maps and giving himself empty fancy new titles, Gongsun Du would actually expand his territory in the late 190s through a naval invasion of the Donglai commandery to his south in the Qing province, where he would take some towns and then boldly create a second new province named the Ying province. Of course, there's not even enough land to make a commandery there, so this is a rather empty title he will hand out to Liu Yi, his advisor. And now with two provinces under his control, Gongsun Du started to dream of bigger things, as he would construct ancestral temples for his forefathers in the style of the Han Emperor, and he would also start dressing like the emperor himself with a crown adorned with 9 strands of jade. His carriage would also be done in the Imperial style, and his personal guards were all given helmets similar to those worn by the Imperial guards in the palace in Luoyang, as Gongsun Du essentially lived out his days as a self-appointed emperor, even though he never made the steps to officially proclaim this himself. Interestingly enough, much like with Yuan Shu, Gongsun Du did seek out evidence of mandate of heaven to help justify a potential future claim to the throne, as a giant rock structure in his hometown of Xiangping would end up being hailed as a sign from the heavens, as one giant pillar of stone was being supported by three smaller stones, which Gongsun Du took to mean that he was the giant pillar meant to be supported by three grand excellencies and thus destined to become an emperor. And regardless of the level of delusion suffered by Gongsun Du in his old age, he was left alone in the fringe north as the rest of China descended into chaos. And for a long period of over a decade, with Yuan Shao and Cao Cao balancing out each other in the north, no one bothered Gongsun Du until the Battle of Guandu shifted this balance of power heavily in Cao Cao's favor. So by early 200s, with Cao Cao representing the emperor as the regent and prime minister of the Han, an imperial edict would finally arrive in Liaodong, as Cao Cao, seeking to pacify and ally himself with Gongsun Du, granted him the official Han titles of Wu Wei Jiangjun, or the General of Martial Intimidation, and the second Marquis of Eternal Peace, which is called Yongning Xianghou. Now, Gongsun Du wasn't very happy to get these titles, as they're far beneath him at this point compared to his self-appointed ones, and knowing that Yuan Shao's three sons, led by Yuan Tan, Yuan Xi, and Yuan Shang, were still active in the north, Gongsun Du laughed at Cao Cao's attempt, as he would proclaim to his court that he was already the king of Liaodong. So what use does he have for eternal peace, as he would end up tossing this second Marquis seal given by Cao Cao into his storage. Yet Gongsun Du's time would soon come to an end, as in 204, Gongsun Du would die of natural causes in either his late 50s or early 60s, as his eldest son, Gongsun Kang, would now take over. Now, Gongsun Kang had even more ambition than his father, as he was not only younger, eager, and hungrier for power, but he, compared to his father, also lacked the understanding of the world around him. Well, Gongsun Du had the experience of serving in the Han Imperial Court, and as the prefect of the Ji province, Gongsun Kang never knew the world outside of his father's Liaodong. Thus, when he first took over, he seriously considered launching an attack on the city of Ye, with just 30,000 infantry and 10,000 cavalry, as he had heard that Cao Cao's forces were exhausted after besieging the city, and that the city walls were damaged from the siege itself. And when he shared his plans with his court, most of the officers, largely yes-men from Gongsun Du's days, agreed with his assessment. But Liang Mao, who was originally a court official under Cao Cao, and the former administrator of Taishan, would speak up and refute Gongsun Kang's plans as not only morally wrong, but also fool-headed, as any attack on Cao Cao would be responded in force now that Yuan Shao's sons are largely defeated, and by that time, they would be lucky to keep their heads, much less the autonomy they now enjoyed. Now, to be clear here, Liang Mao was no fan of the Gongsun clan, as he had originally traveled north because he was appointed by the Han court to become the next administrator of the Yuelang commandery. But when he was passing through Liaodong to get to Yuelang, Gongsun Du put him under house arrest, both as a mean to keep the Han court influence out of Yuelang, which Gongsun Du saw potentially as under his influence, and to keep Liang Mao, who Gongsun Du saw as a talent, in his own court. And then from that point on, Liang Mao was stuck in Liaodong. Now luckily for him, Gongsun Kang would agree with his assessment, as not only were the attack plans scrapped, Liang Mao would actually eventually be allowed to leave, as Liang Mao would return to become a future administrator of the Wei commandery, before ultimately becoming Cao Pi's tutor. And with that, our episode will be coming to an end, as we'll be continuing next time to see how Gongsun Kang will retain power now with Cao Cao nearing full control of the north. So hopefully you all have enjoyed this episode enough to hit that like button to help support the channel, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!